Hey, what's up guys? My name is Nick. Welcome to the channel. This is going to be my first video where I'm basically just going to break down and kind of give an after action report of my Ironman 70.3 Texas experience in Galveston. So I'm basically just going to outline everything I did during prep, my training plan, my taper, the equipment that I got and that I used and that I liked and didn't like, as well as the actual race itself. Yeah, so let's get right into it. So this is my first Ironman 70.3. I kind of didn't really know what to expect going into it. I obviously had done tons of research online and talked with people that I know and just met through social media or knew in other ways that have done these kinds of races before to really learn what it was actually like, because a lot of what you see, on social media is one thing versus actually being in it. So I really wanted to come in kind of as mentally prepared as I could be for expecting that race experience. And I got tons of great advice, a lot of which I'll be talking about in this video. All right, so now let's talk about the training plan. So I didn't really know where to start. I think I stumbled across Training Peaks, and I ended up using one of the programs that I found on Training Peaks, which was a 4-month, 12-week prep. Ideally, I would have liked it to be a little bit longer, but I'm pretty happy with the 4-month prep, especially for the first one, because I think I was definitely starting to get a little bit burnt out towards the end in terms of all the training and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was about 12 hours a week on the higher end, and that would be pretty much like 2 swims, 2 bike rides, 2 runs, and then of course your long ride and long run on the weekends. Maybe towards the end there was also maybe like a 3rd swim. But yeah, I really enjoyed the training program. I thought it was structured really well. I love how Training Peaks integrates with Garmin and Whoop and all those other like fun gadgets, especially like Zwift, which was really, really useful and made my training a ton easier. So that being said, the first block and a half or so of my training program went really smoothly. I couldn't, I honestly, I was doing great. It was the build phase, and it was base phase and the build phase that I did really well. My recovery was on point, nutrition was on point, my workouts were on point. I was killing everything, but things started to go a little bit awry about halfway through the training plan. I'm a student right now. I'm finishing on my last semester at Northeastern as a computer science student, and this semester became extremely challenging. And my recovery was probably the first thing that I had to sacrifice. That definitely became a problem later on, but there were plenty of times where I was getting, 4 hours of sleep. There was a couple weeks I was probably averaging 4 hours of sleep, 5 hours of sleep, and that's definitely not ideal. Just for your health, on top of trying to also train for, an intense endurance sport. So definitely not something that I'd like to repeat, but it kind of became necessary under the circumstances. There's, I guess, nothing you can really do about it. Sometimes stuff gets in the way, and obviously I did those things to try and still maximize my recovery, maximize my sessions, move workouts around, whatever. But you only really have so much flexibility there. That being said, I didn't miss too many sessions. Definitely a couple of swim sessions. Pool at Northeastern is only open certain times every day. So I didn't really have flexibility there to, move those around as much. That being said, the nutrition did still stay on point, and, leading up to the rest of the prep, I still was getting everything done. The main thing that suffered was probably recovery. And that became a problem probably 3 weeks out, because my left hamstring started to kind of get tweaked, or I don't really know how to explain it. It felt really just inflamed and not good. And it progressively got a bit worse until it was about two weeks out. And I wasn't actually able to do my taper off sessions because of how inflamed it was. So I got it checked out, and I think it was, micro tears from overtraining probably, and I think that probably could have been mitigated with better recovery, but it is what it is. I took it easy, taped up my legs. I was still going to do the race, so just tried to do everything I could to get that leg feeling good again as soon as possible. In addition to that, on my actual like last week, during my kind of 2-ish week taper, I got sick the Wednesday before or Tuesday before the race, and I was really sick actually. I was in bed the Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday I was kind of able to start moving around again, but still, just not feeling good, and that continued pretty much up until the day before the race. So now let's talk about my nutrition and hydration strategy. So my goal was to do 80 grams carbs an hour, give or take 1,000 milligrams sodium, and about 32 ounces of water, because I expected Texas to be super hot. So I felt pretty good about that. I'd gotten Martin gels for the race because I had used Martin gels before for races, and they work well with me, even though I didn't use them super consistently during training because they are quite expensive. I did have a couple extra of the BPN gels on me just in case I needed them for any reason. And my hydration was going to be G1M Sport carb mix, as well as Engineered Nutrition electrolytes. The split for the bike was going to be 2 gels an hour. For basically, I set aside nutrition per hour. So for each hour, 2 gels an hour and 1 bottle. And each bottle was a scoop and a half of G1M, so about 30 carbs, and 2 Engineered Nutrition, which is about 600 sodium each. So that put me at about 1,300 sodium in each bottle, plus 30 carbs, plus my 2 gels. So that put me right at the 80 mark. And yeah, I felt good about that. For the run, the split was going to be a gel, every 25-30 minutes, because obviously you're running, so the digestion stuff, you got to slow down the intake a little bit. And I was just going to continue that until I finished, So, and hydration would just come in at every aid station. I just alternate between electrolytes and water. Yeah, that's the strategy for nutrition for the race. Let's talk about the actual race now. Obviously, the weather wasn't looking great. It was supposed to be, a pretty shitty weekend. There was rain and thunder, and it was raining and extremely windy all day on Saturday. It was definitely a little bit of concern about what the conditions were going to be on the race day. So that being said, race day, we woke up about 4. We were really close to the actual event area, which was nice because we didn't have to wake up at 3 or anything crazy. The bike was out overnight in the pouring rain and wind, so definitely was a priority of mine to go and check up on everything, as soon as I got there, make sure everything's working good and, nothing bad has happened to the bike, tire pressure, etc. So packed all that stuff into my bag and, got my tri-suit on, had quick breakfast, super light, and basically just headed down to the race. So we got there at about 5:15. It's, still pitch black because it's, 5 in the morning, and it was pouring rain and windy. It was freezing, and I honestly was not prepared for that because I had actually, been doing some heat training and stuff because it was, supposed to be 78 degrees in Texas, and it was closer to probably 45 at the time, 45, 50 that morning with the wind. It was not pleasant outside. I didn't even bring any sweatshirts or anything. So once I got out of the car, I was definitely cold, and I started putting my wetsuit on. I didn't see the notification that the swim had been canceled. So they had canceled the swim the morning of because of the intense wind. I guess the water conditions were unsafe, which is definitely really unfortunate because, you're training all this time and doing all this swimming and you don't even really get to see how you would have done on the swim. Yeah, I mean, that definitely sucked. But I didn't really, in the moment, I wasn't too upset. I was kind of just locked in, focused on what I had to do. I was like, all right, swim's done, whatever, take my wetsuit off, just keep going as planned, get down to the transition area and get the bike ready and get my transition ready. So they'd opted for a rolling start on the bike instead of the normal swim start. and that's rolling bike start was going to start at 7:30. So they were doing it by row. So I was there pretty early, and it was still freezing and raining and stuff, and I was also underdressed. So it didn't take long for me to become very miserable. A lot of other people were as well. Tons of people started going up to the registration tent, dropping out because they had disc wheels, and the wind was going to be it was like 20 miles per hour average plus, so a lot of people were dropping out for safety and bunch of other things. So it was definitely pretty chaotic, but I was just trying to keep my head on straight. I wasn't going to drop out. I was going to still do it. I'd come all this way, not to give up. So I was freezing. I had to have my brother get woken up early and drop off his sweatshirt and sweatpants, and then I basically just went and hid in the porta potties in the transition area just to like try and stay warm as best as I could. I probably didn't even start setting my bike up until 6:37. After the bike was set up and transition bag and everything was ready to go, tire pressure's done, I'm kind of just standing there trying not to freeze my ass off. And that definitely, being underprepared for the cold and kind of having that extra clothing just in case was definitely a big mistake. It definitely took me a bit to warm up on the bike because of that. And yeah, that being said, by the time that the bike start came around, for me, it went row by row, like number row. I was towards the back, so I probably got out of the start by 8:30, maybe 8:45, I want to say. It was kind of late. But yeah, I mean, I hopped on the bike, rolled out. It was still freezing from just standing there in the cold and the wind. The rain had stopped by this point, thankfully, and it got light out. So mentally, I was starting to pick back up again. And yeah, the roads were slick, so I wasn't trying to, go too fast or anything. I really just wanted to kind of get a feel and keep control of my mental state for the course of this race, because again, I didn't really know exactly what to expect. So come out of transition 2, I guess, or the start, or technically it'd be T1. So come out of the start, taking it easy, warming into the bike. There's lots of bends for the first probably 3 to 4 miles while you come out, and before you get, so Galveston is, a long beach island. So the bike course is essentially just an out and back, 28 miles one way, 28 the other. But it does take about 3 miles to get from that start area to the just runaway. So yeah, I mean, I kind of quickly got a feel for the roads, got a feel for the wind and how that was gonna, be pushing against me the entire time. The plan, I guess, was since the wind was so strong, it was kind of a crosswind and a headwind. But, logically that would have meant that it would be the opposite coming back. You'd have some tailwind, but the wind was so gusty and shifty, it was really hard to tell when I was getting that tailwind. So I kind of was just trying to focus on staring at my bike computer and my power meter and just keep an eye on my cadence and use that kind of as my reference for when I can pick it up and when I can slow it down. So I was generally probably riding at about, I want to say like 190 to 200 watts. But if I noticed my cadence would start to pick up, that probably meant I had a tailwind. I'd push it up a gear. And vice versa. Whenever my cadence would slow down a little more, I'd push it down a gear. So I was basically just glued to my bike computer the whole time. I was flying past everybody, which was great. The only people that were really overtaking me were like the people with disc wheels and real, TT bikes. Even on my road bike, I was still cruising past a ton of people, which was great. I felt like I was going fast. I was averaging about 19 miles an hour or so, even with the winds, which was great. I think that without the winds, I probably could have shaved, 15 minutes off my bike or so. But yeah, I mean, Didn't really notice when I was getting those tailwinds. It kind of just felt like I was pushing against the wind, the headwind and the crosswind the entire time. But despite all of that, finished the bike in 2:55:02, I believe, which was, again, faster than I thought I would do. In my head, I had, a 2:45 bike, but that was without the wind. So I think, accounting for that, I was pretty happy with that time. Yeah, I mean, it was great. The course itself was, especially with the wind was really like the biggest problem that entire race, I think, just because it kept you so cold. I had my short tri-suit on. I didn't have any extra layers, so it really kept me freezing the entire time, and was just pushing you the whole time. Gusting, pushing you over. A lot of people on disc brakes. I did see a lot of crashes, which was really unfortunate to see for those people. Super unfortunate, but that's just how it goes, I guess. All right, so wrapping up the bike, coming into T2. The last couple of minutes on the bike, I started to just, slow myself down a little bit and kind of mentally prepare for T2. I hadn't really practiced transitions at all, so I didn't exactly know what to expect. I already had my my bib on with my bib belt, just because I had, decided it'd be easier to just take care of that before I started the race. So, just started slowing myself down, getting ready to transition, making sure I'm visualizing it and thinking about keeping my helmet on until I dock the bike, and then switch the shoes and etc. As well as going to the bathroom. I still had to go to the bathroom because I hadn't gone this entire time. So probably the last half mile, I'm basically just overtaking as many people as I can without overdoing it. Didn't want to burn a match, but I was happy with the effort that I had made on the bike. Transition comes about 500 feet before. I stopped the bike computer, saved the activity, because I was using my bike computer for tracking the bike, and then I was going to start the run on its own on the watch because there was no swim, so I couldn't use the triathlon mode that Garmin has. So stopped the bike computer, dismount the bike before the line, kind of hobbled over to my area in the transition, which was a weird feeling. My legs were definitely more noticeably beat up than I guess they had been in any of my training sessions. But despite that, very quickly, set the bike up, took off the helmet, did my transition, put my shoes on, and quickly went to the bathroom. And just like that, I was out of T2. And my transition time was 4 minutes and change. It was 4 minutes and 7 seconds, 15 seconds, something like that. Which I was pretty happy with because I didn't really, I wasn't trying to rush and get an extremely fast transition. There's definitely things that I could improve with it and make it faster for sure. But having not practiced transitions, in my head, I had been expecting 10 minutes. I don't know what I been doing that would take 10 minutes, but that's just what I had been thinking before the race. So yeah, I mean, just like that, I was out of there. Now, we'll talk about the run. So, fly out of T2. I had planned to, I was wearing my new, Alpha Fly 3s, my race shoes. I'd done a couple runs in them, and those shoes are amazing. I was flying out at about 7-minute pace. I did the first mile in 7 minutes and 6 seconds, I think. And honestly, it was hard for me to slow down at that point. Just all the adrenaline was going, the crowd, the energy. I was feeling great flying at that pace. Even my heart rate wasn't really that high at that pace, which was great. But I decided to be smart and kind of try to force myself over the next, 2 miles to slow down. So my second mile I did a 7:30. And by mile 3, I kind of found my settle-in pace, which was about 7:45. And I kind of just settled into that pace and was just gonna chug along and see how I would feel once I kind of got to the 8, 9, 10 mark. I stuck to my plan with the gels, kind of did gels every 25-30 minutes. And then I would just alternate, getting a cup of ice, putting it in my tri-suit or in my hat, and getting electrolytes at every aid station. And that plan worked pretty well. Nutrition was not an issue, energy was not an issue. I was feeling great. I wasn't really cramping or anything. I did start to feel just the pain of the entire race start to build up towards mile 7 or 8. But I otherwise was feeling completely fine. That didn't slow me down. So about, mile 8, 9, 10, I'm still doing 7:45 to 7:30 pace. That's where I started to slowly pick it up. 10 and 11, I think I was doing like 7:30. And then the last 2 miles, I just let everything rip. And the last mile I ran like a 6 something. So I was flying. I mean, I finished the whole run with 1:39:08 was the time. And that was a PR by like almost more than 7 minutes for me for a half marathon. So I was, beyond ecstatic. But that was everything I had in me. I was definitely like sitting down in the finish line zone for a minute, just recuperating, because I was not feeling great at all anymore. So yeah, I mean, that being said, that put my total time for the race at 4:38. Oh, sorry, the run finish was 1:39 flat. So that put my total time for the race at 4:38:07. And kind of in my head, guesstimating my swim, I think that would put me in like the 5:20 to 5:30 mark. Guesstimating swim and T1, which I'm actually really, really happy with, because I would have thought that I would have thought that I would have been closer to the 6-hour mark, especially, I was definitely thinking, especially the week before while I was sick, that I was going to be lucky if I got 6 hours. So, yeah, I mean, I'm extremely happy with how that race went. There's definitely things that could have gone better. The conditions definitely played a huge factor. But if anything, it goes to show that you trust the training that you've done, trust the process, and you will still get your results, even if you miss a couple sessions, or aren't feeling good or whatever. But anyways, thanks again to everybody that's supported me throughout this prep. Thanks to everybody that's been following along on Instagram and TikTok, and offering their support, offering advice. Tons of people have reached out, given me advice that has been hugely useful throughout my training, and it's only going to continue to be more useful as I go on. I'm thinking of probably taking a little bit of time off. I'm still going to do some training in the background, but I want to get, build some muscle back up again, go back to lifting what I originally, started with and I love. And then probably do that for about a month or so. And then I'm looking at, in September, Ironman 70.3 Jones Beach in New York. So that's the next race. Haven't bought the ticket yet, but that's what I got my sights set on. So I'm just going to recover, enjoy life for a little longer before I hop back into prep again. That being said, thanks for following along, and I'll see you guys in the next one.